Right. Yeah. So you got the TCB podcast.
Yep.
You got the comedy.
The commercial break. Yep.
And that's like comedy kind of guys.
Just a comedy chatcast. It's me and my friend Chrissy Hoadley. I call her Hoadley. And we sit and we shoot the shit. It's the most ridiculous thing. It's just a bunch of absurd bullshit. Because our senses of humor, I think, are similar. And the style is absurd improv. So, you take one simple story from your life, from the news, pop culture, and then you make it ridiculous and you go down a rabbit hole. And that's the style. It seems to be resonating. So we've done okay for ourselves. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the medium very much.
And you do real estate, which yeah. So you have your own, that's what you do during like the day, you do the real estate?
Yeah. So the real estate is the main money driver in my house, right? My wife's not giving me permission to jump off the real estate train quite yet.
Not yet. Huh?
No, she's too used to that money. But I got into real estate probably about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, coming out of the crash. And we finance construction projects. So we don't actually finance it out of our own pockets, but we would be called advisors on the
like a broker, advisor type of thing. Okay.
Yeah. So somebody's going to build, one of these fancy high rises, and they need debt, equity, and they come to us and we go source that capital from multiple different places, hedge funds, banks.
How fun is that, doing that all day long and then doing a podcast and then getting that out?
I
and then
like
promoting
the chase of the deal.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm a talker, right? And so I like negotiating because you use your mouth. Your mouth is your tool. It's your instrument. It's like a doctor with a scalpel. You use your mouth. You go in there. You slice and dice. You give a little. You take a little. So I like that, and I have a philosophy about life in general that it's kind of we mediate life. We are constantly negotiating life with our friends, with our partners, with everybody. And so I just find it to be natural to do that. But because I'm a podcaster on the side, and now making money doing that, right? One of the few podcasters I'm lucky enough, grateful enough to be making money at it. I'm more excited about that than I am about real estate. I wish that was something that I could do full time, but you have to be careful because this kind of popularity can come and go so easily. And so it makes me a little bit nervous to say, oh, okay, just let me do the podcast and then lose all of that momentum you have with the real estate, because it takes a long time to make those connections, to get those leads, to have those deals come in and you can work a deal for a year, 2, 3. These are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. So, like a deal we're working out, it's $320 million. It could take a year and a half to negotiate and get done. If I pick up and I leave and just go do the podcast, well, then what the fuck do I do with the $320 million deal? Right. And you can imagine that the commission on a $320 million deal is not a bad payday if you can close it.
What, if you don't mind me asking, just rough estimate, just on average?
The industry standard or the advisory standard is a point, right? Is 1 point on whatever capital you raise. And you get closed when the deal is consummated between the financier and the developer. Oftentimes, that will be negotiated down in a deal, especially deals over $50 or $100 million, because it starts getting a little ridiculous, right? And so either the financier or the developer will often come and say, guys, $3.5 million. And you'll say, a year and a half of my life, right? That's what you'll say to them. But at some point, you have to be pragmatic about it. You have to say, well, $1.5 million is a lot of money, more money than most people make their entire lifetimes. So if I can do that, and I don't want to give the impression that I make $1.5 million a year. I don't, right? Because they take a long time to do, and I can work 5 of them, and maybe one of them closes.
Right.
Because if they're coming to me, it means that they need help. There's something about the deal that needs to be negotiated. It's not, the guys that have built 20 of these towers, they don't need Bryan to go get money. They know where to get the money. Right?
So in other words, you're like the fixer. So when there's a problem,
I come in.
You get the headache.
Yes, I get the headache.
You get the headache to work on for a year and a half, and hopefully it goes through. And if it does, you'll get somewhere $800K to 1.5 once it go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 1.1 is 1%.
It's 1%. Yeah. So if on a $320 million deal, you'd be looking at $3.5 million.
$3.5 million, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to give you $3.5 million, right?
The one of two things happens. Either it's unlikely they'll give that to you at the end. They want to renegotiate. And even the lender might say to you, listen, at some point, this is a little ridiculous, right? We understand you're important to the deal. And I am. But $3.5 million, you're making the most profit that anybody will make in this deal for 5 years, right? You're taking $3.5 million away from the deal right at the closing table. Like, what about $2.5 million? How does that sound, right?
Yeah.
And so you learn to play ball, and again, you're going to get negotiated. It's just one of those things that tends to happen. The other thing that real estate is notorious for is the deal often comes through multiple channels. And when the deal comes through multiple channels, no one along the way is willing to give up their position. So in order to get a deal done, you often have to negotiate with other, they call themselves advisors, but really what they are is they're just people who happen to know of a deal, and they called somebody who knows how to get it done. So oftentimes, you know, if you got $1 million paycheck, oftentimes 200,000 is going to this guy, 100,000 is going to that guy, right? So, you know, these are just facts of life in real estate. Anybody who's worked in real estate knows this, but that's how the advisory business works.
Right. Plus, you know, like you just said, even if you did get the 3.5, by the time you pay this guy that helped you connect you with the deal and this and that, now you're probably down to say 2. When it's all said and done with the taxes,
you make $1 million.
Then after that, you're negotiating because they don't want to give you 2. So you make about $1 million. You know, and it takes a year and a half, but it's good money, and you know it's good. Now, when these people go get these like massive houses, right? Yeah. A lot of them, because I had a couple real estate people, and they don't have good credit because they pay cash all the time. Yeah. So when they go buy $100 million house or $300 million, whatever it is, commercial property, if their credit isn't good, they're done for, right?
Well, there's credit and then there's cash, right? And so cash is always king. We know that. So even if someone, so let's say someone, let's take, for example, Howard Stern, who we were talking about, right? And he has $250 million in the bank. He's going to buy a $50-60 million property down the street. You know, Barclays, Wells Fargo Private Banking, other institutions like that might be willing to take on a mortgage like that. But that is what we call a unicorn property, right? It's a unicorn property, and if the market goes south, good luck finding someone to buy that thing for $50-60 million. So it's a hard deal to do in the first place, even for Howard Stern. But what Stern can do is say, but I have $350 million in the bank, and I got $650 million worth of stock options. So even if his credit is 0, because he's never used his credit, right, which actually would make a lot of sense for Howard Stern, he can go and he can negotiate a loan. Donald Trump is the same way, right? And I don't want to get into politics, but Trump is the same way. He had bad credit. He was bankrupt. He had a history of not paying people, good, bad, or indifferent. We don't know. I don't know what the real truth is, but the banks continue to deal with him because he has leverage, and leverage is key in real estate. Doesn't matter what your credit score is when you're doing business at that level. If you're buying a $52 million house, if you got $150 million in the bank, someone's willing to give you $30 million to purchase a $52 million.
Because you have something to back it up, and an asset or assets that will get the underwriters who approve it. Right?
So maybe they don't like the house. The deal, the house deal is not important to them, right? But what they do know is that Howard Stern would be a good client. He's probably good for it, right? And you know, they're making 2.5-3.5% on $52 million. I mean,
yeah. And what about the portfolio? You can go and say to your next client, I just sold Howard Stern a house down the street. Yeah. I mean, that looks pretty fucking good.
The real estate agents are the ones who really make a killing in real estate, if I'm being honest. So I've been doing this for a long time at a lot of different levels. At single family residentials where I started, what they refer to as SFR, so that'd be you or me going to buy a home, right? And then we moved into kind of smaller commercial deals that would be, you know, maybe a small strip mall with a CVS on the corner. And then we just kind of, more and more people started asking us for different kinds of deals, and they got bigger, and then we just started to make relationships. The reality is that, you know, the real estate agents all along the way are the ones who will never get talked down out of their commission, because that's on a contract. It's just a long history of I get paid 3.5%, I get paid 3%, period. I get paid, period. Yeah. I'm not negotiating. I have a real estate agent. I love her to death. She's been my friend for a long time. And she says, I will not negotiate my fee. Don't even ask me, right? And she'll say it to anybody, right? It's one of the first things she says to a potential client. I'm not negotiating my fee. My fee is non-negotiable. Because I think, you know, after a few deals with her, I was like, oh, well, let's talk about, you know, I don't negotiate my fee. Do you want me working less hard for your for your deal. And so I could say that to my clients. I could say, do you want me to work less hard for your deal? But the truth is there's a million other advisors that would go do that deal. So you got to be careful, right? And when you're in with a real estate agent, there's a contract. It's just a little bit of a different, it's a little bit of it's a sticky wicket, so to speak. The real estate agents are the ones who make money.
But I would do exactly what you did. Like when they wanted to negotiate the point, I mean, you'd be a retard not to negotiate it, because you could still walk away with $1 million or 1.5, and just like you just said, there's 100 other
guys
Bryans,
behind me,
right?
Yeah.
So that you can be replaced.
That's
right. You're good, but there's people just as good as you too. Just like you're good at what you do with your podcasting and everything else.
There's a million other podcasters that are great at what they do. Yeah.
Now, before we get into all that, with this real estate market right now, like everything's through the roof.
Yes.
That real estate's through the roof, gold's through the roof, gas is up. Forget about all that. But the real estate, don't you think this is a bubble that's going to pop? I mean, it cannot withstand. To me, you're in the market, so you know more than me. I don't know shit. I just listen to people that are involved in it. But don't you think this is going to pop? Because it can't sustain like this.
It's a great question that I wish I had the answer to.
I'm just asking your opinion.
I think my opinion is there are real forces driving this market right now, right? We're not talking about derivative mortgages that are being sold, that we're not talking about zero credit score loans, no doc loans, although those are coming back, right? We're not talking about, that's not a market driver. And the market driver is not $100,000 houses, right? They're really, real estate is very pricey right now because there are real costs associated. So in other words, the wood is expensive, right? Just 2 months ago, the wood was almost 300% more expensive than it was a year and a half.
Wow.
300%. Wow. You could buy you could go buy a 2x4, right? For like whatever, $26 or $18 at Home Depot.
Canada, because it's coming from Canada.
Yeah, Canada and China and you know, a lot of these places, and all the shipping stopped because of COVID. It all just stopped. And then here's what people aren't thinking about. I mean, some people smarter than us are thinking about. The reason why the market is gone crazy is it costs a lot to build a house right now, and labor is hard to find. But what's really going on is that if during the pandemic you are at home all the time, your home becomes the most important thing to you. You don't want to leave it, or you see this as a good time to get a new home because you could see this as a potentially new way of life for a long period of time. There are less houses, older houses, second homes coming on the market. So when one does come up, people scramble to buy it because less houses are going up for sale. I'm talking about houses that are already lived in are going up for sale. And there are not enough new construction homes being built because it's too expensive to build them. So I think the market forces are real that has driven this high. I do think it has to cool down, probably sooner rather than later. But who knows if the government continues to pump a bunch of money into the economy and prop everybody up, and we go through another round of
08.
Yeah. If we go through another 2020, if we go through another everybody locked down,
it's over.
It's over. All right, it's either over or it's going to continue to stay propped up, but at some point it's going to be over.